Welcome everyone to episode 2 of our What If series. Thanks for joining us today. So these interview webinars have been born out of our other start of lockdown knowledge sharing calls around how businesses were responding to the pandemic. So we've now refocused to discuss and share knowledge on how businesses can plan to accelerate from this situation and the part of the customer experience, digital transformation, and how we better serve vulnerable groups, how they can all play their part in our recovery from the current pandemic. So my name is Tracy Greer, I'm the head of marketing for Mando. We are a digital agency, for those that don't know. We're committed to simplifying digital experiences for everybody. We work with regulated industries like utilities and financial services, focusing on helping your customers to do those tasks that they really don't want to do. So I'm sure we don't all wake up on a Saturday morning really excited about having to pay our water bill or having to submit an insurance claim. So we make these experiences easier and give your customers time back to do more exciting things that they want to be able to do. So today we welcome our guest Chris Knapp, a technology strategist with Microsoft. As a Microsoft Gold partner, Mando has worked with Microsoft for a number of years, and we now specifically partner with them around their Azure services and specifically cognitive services. So just to let you know, we've also got my Mando colleague Sarah on with us too. Sarah's going to help us with the logistics this morning and monitoring the chat. So if you've got any comments or questions that you want answered at the end, if you just pop those into the chat, Sarah can then pose those to Chris towards the end of the webinar. So we're going to be chatting for around 20 minutes-ish, and then we'll move on to questions or comments. If you do need it and you haven't seen it before, Teams has also got a built-in subtitles feature. So if you go to the 3-dot menu in the middle of your screen, you'll be able to enable the subtitles for you there. And you might have seen we're also recording this so that we can send it out later on demand. So welcome to Chris. Do you just want to introduce yourself to everybody, just a bit more about what you do and how you've gotten involved with Microsoft and the world of tech?
Hey Tracy, morning everyone. So I'm Chris Knapp, I'm a technology strategist for Microsoft in the insurance sector. So very much helping customers on their cloud journey and getting value from their investments with Microsoft. I started with Microsoft in 2001 as an intern. So it was back then, it was very much the goal of the company was to put a PC on every desk and in every household. And it's changed quite a bit in that time. I think I really enjoyed that first year. Like I didn't really know at the time that I was looking for a career in tech, but I had such a good first year that to be honest, in my final year of university, was really itching to get back at Microsoft. And it's very strange from going from a PC on every desk sort of ethos as a company. It's very much evolved into that internet revolution was very much underway. It was just at the end of the dot-com boom. And we've evolved into the mobile world, and so like looking to make sure that we have solutions that worked on things like mobile phones, tablets, and that was a really interesting second iteration, and then finally onto this the cloud revolution and I think that cloud revolution has been really interesting. I'd definitely say as much as I've really enjoyed my career at Microsoft, this is definitely the most exciting time to be working in tech.
That's great. Yeah, I guess with the changes in leadership over those almost 2 decades, you've probably seen quite a lot of reinventions of the company. So that's really interesting. Great. So we'll get on to some discussion now. So we're going to start by just looking at customer behaviour and customer needs, and with your view across your insurance sector clients, but then also more broadly across sectors. So across all industries, customer needs have been ever-changing, recently, more often driven by the large tech disruptors like Amazon and Netflix, who are constantly raising the bar when it comes to customer experience. So for you, what has characterised customer behaviour and what customers have wanted over the last few years? What have been the kind of the key trends that you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the customers are a lot more demanding of organisations now, and so I think the days of just having a phone number and a website and having that as the only route in is not really going to deliver customer satisfaction. So we're seeing customers evolve through things like social media, and the online shopping and these sorts of avenues that are available, they're a lot more robust from a technical perspective, and so will demand that technical agility from all of their providers. I definitely think that frustration, you see that in all industries like that. No one wants to hear hold music. No one wants to hear, although it's nice to hear you're important to someone. When you've been sat on the phone for 30 minutes, it's not something that's going to deliver satisfaction. Definitely something that we're looking to change.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as the title of the webinar alludes to, waiting on hold for long periods of time is just not what customers want to do anymore, but it's sort of had to put up with over the last few years because there haven't really been any better solutions. I think customers have always known, haven't they, that there's a better way, got to be a different way. So kind of coming to the immediate period and the period that we're in at the moment, how have you seen those kind of customer behaviour, customer needs change in the last few months? What's characterised that for you?
Just that remote aspect of it, and so the inability to get into a branch, and that there's a lot more people that need information. I certainly say in the insurance sector, which I'm a part of, there's a increased need for that information through COVID-19 and the isolation that's come, people being put on furloughed, or people that are poorly, that need to understand what their health insurance policies are, what the details are, what they're entitled to, has certainly increased. And the ability for a lot of providers to actually service that has been impacted as that customer demand to speak to providers has gone up, or get information primarily from providers has gone up. The ability in that initial period where the country went into lockdown and people weren't allowed into the office, contact centres were one of the biggest impacted. And so as an industry, upwards of 95% of contact centre workers had to be in the office to function. And so organisations had to really switch and enable those users to work home remotely very quickly in order to make that happen. But as we saw in insurance, again, was a really hard time where that demand went up and the ability to service it went down initially. Between 25 and 40% of our people that were phoning through to contact centres weren't getting through, so they give up on being on hold and weren't getting the information they needed. I'd say a lot of people managed to change that around quite quickly and stand up their contact centres, but that initial pain was something that would have been very stressful for customers.
And I guess that kind of pain characterised your first few weeks in lockdown, I would imagine, kind of supporting your clients to be able to just change the way that they work operationally, completely change.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a few of those long-held beliefs that ended up being myths in many ways, that those workers that had to be in the office, we realised very quickly they didn't need to be. But yeah, those first few weeks in isolation where we were on Teams calls like this, the vast majority of those as a Microsoft employee was enabling our customers to move to Teams more rapidly. And so it was very much like a Groundhog Day scenario, but it was quite tangible in many ways, where you could see the impact and the benefit we were giving to our customers to then pass on to their end customers.
Yeah, definitely. And how did your customers deal with the massive increase in vulnerable customers and maybe those customers that needed a lot more support and guidance through situations like losing jobs or bereavement or mental health issues?
I'd say sadly that for the most part, those vulnerable customers were the ones that were most impacted, and so where they didn't have the ability to wait on hold for as many other people. And I'd say that there's some organisations that could triage it a lot better, and so those people with a real stressful need, or that had that concern that needed to be seen, could be triaged and get through faster. But for the most and majority of customers, it was a simple queue, and so if you just have to wait that time, and there wasn't really that ability to use the technology or use that customer understanding to know who those vulnerable customers were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably it's not just serving those vulnerable customers, is it? It's actually identifying them that can make things a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging for businesses. Okay, so just thinking about kind of coming out of the back of this period and thinking about the next 3 to 5 years, I mean, how from discussions that are happening within Microsoft and just across your industry in general, how are you guys predicting customer needs to change over the next, up to 5 years?
It definitely feels like we've made through this COVID transformation that there's a solid platform that has been put in place, and so enabling this remote working and people to have that flexibility to work from different locations through things like Teams has created the platform. But I do think that there's an opportunity for us to use the technology to do so much more. If we can understand the customer requirements, and so being able to use that remote contact center in a way that is going to get those vulnerable or high priority customers through to that human discussion as soon as possible, will be really powerful. And I think we need to use that technology you mentioned there before to identify that earlier. If it's going through a website, an application, or a direct phone call, using that understanding of our customers. So if we can get that single view of the customer, know their needs and get them through to a contact center as soon as possible, then that's going to be a really take this remote working and remote flexibility and make it something that's really a game changer, and can enable a lot of our customers to get that competitive edge over their competition. I think using things like cognitive services, and so where we can detect people that may be struggling, sentiment recognition, anything like that through like the website, through applications, or through the initial phone conversation, things like voice chatbots that can enable us to really triage that. I think if people can self-service, fantastic, and giving that option to give them that information about their policy or what's happening with their provider, that'll be really good. But then if there's like general questions that a chatbot, and many times, like if we look at the feedback from Facebook, if we look at an entity at the moment, most people just want to have a text or chat-based conversation anyway. And so if we can provide that option, that takes a huge workload off the contact center. And then if we need to use that voice audio chatbot as well, again, there's that ability to give that simple information through that really enables those high-skilled individuals in the contact center to be helping those customers that need it most with the complex, detailed guidance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the stat is around 56% of people preferring to message rather than speak to somebody. So that's obviously definitely going to be an increasing trend. What about things like data and use of data? Are you predicting that data privacy is going to be impacted further over the next few years, or how do you think customers are going to respond to data being used across even more platforms and channels?
I definitely think it's a fine line to walk, because as a consumer, I want people that are my providers to understand me and tailor offerings towards me that are going to really make that difference. But obviously, you don't want to have it to be intrusive. And so I think that there's a fine line of understanding what our customers actually want and what they're happy to be on. And I do think a really good example of that is things like the price comparison websites and the insurance aggregators in our space, where they can understand all the different areas that their customers are looking to. They understand the industry as well and give that information so they can be proactive to them. So if insurance policies are coming to an end, or if there's a change in the law in any way that would impact those end users and those end customers, they can provide information that's making their renewal process or the claims process a lot smoother.
Yeah, definitely. So it's about giving customers that value, and in order, in return for them giving you their data.
Yeah, definitely. And that there's some very quick ways that we can look to do that. Building that single view of the customer that I talked through earlier, that it does involve taking away a lot of tech debt. And so there's some work that we need to do to put that in place, moving organizations away from a spreadsheet-based system to becoming that database that can really provide that understanding for them. But there are some simple ways they can do that. Like at the moment, lots of us would have had holidays booked over the summer, and so we're going through a process of trying to perhaps reclaim the money that flights have been cancelled or delayed. There are some organisations out there at the moment that will do that automatically, and that, as a consumer, that makes me want to do business with them again. I think there's some really good examples around, like if flights get cancelled. The organisations know about that. They know a flight's cancelled. They know who was booked on that flight, and so they can automate that instead of having to go onto a website and request a refund. doing that sort of information makes it a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's those types of organizations where their customer experience is going to set them apart and differentiate them from others. You know, competing on price is not necessarily the thing that can be done these days. It can't be done all of the time, can it? So competing with a much better, more efficient customer experience has definitely got to be, you know, the way forward, and something which is going to become even more important over the next few years. Great. Okay, so we'll move on now just to think about some examples of how we could set customer contact centers up in the customer journey to streamline it. So obviously with COVID over the last few months, and over the, you know, obviously having an impact over the next few months, have you seen any technologies being implemented by your customers or across the board which have really kind of helped to alleviate those initial bottlenecks?
Yeah, definitely. I think putting some applications in place which can basically enable organisations to react a lot faster. And so I think really trying to look after their end users. I think we've had a lot of organisations that have put some applications in place that would understand their needs, and so giving like basically as an organisation, your employees that ability to feedback if you are feeling vulnerable, if there's bits of support that you need from an organisation, where they can feed that back very fast. And so using things like Power Apps to do that has really given the end user that confidence that the organisation cares about them, but also as an organisation a bit more understanding about what their employees need. I think that's been really powerful. But then there are changes to this, and so I think I appreciate I'm going back to insurance again, but with the COVID situation, there are a lot of policies where like an impact of COVID is covered, and there's some that isn't. And so for those aggregators and I won't name the individuals, but for the price comparison websites that have those policies, some have done a really good job of reaching out to their customers to say, right, this is how you're covered, instead of them having to phone up and wait onto that, go into that contact center and be part of that queue that adds to the problem. Them being proactive has been really powerful. And again, that's about understanding the industry and understanding the customer.
Definitely, yeah. So that's kind of clearing those bottlenecks by reaching out to those customers before they reach out to you.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, turning the tide on that huge number of customer inquiries coming into the contact centre initially.
And there's so many avenues where we can look to exploit that as well, where and really make the difference and make it easy for the customer. If it's the application on their phone, through the website, email, where it can be surfaced initially, so you're proactively reaching out in that way. But as soon as they log in, as soon as they go onto the website, obviously we have the information about that customer and being able to provide them, because they may be going in to find out. So if it's online banking, for example, or if you're going in to like inquire about a water bill, waste collections, all this sort of stuff, which I think everyone's looking to do because things change because of the lockdown, being able to provide that information in a way that the customer gets it without really having to do much effort, I think that's definitely going to increase that loyalty.
Definitely, yeah. Just thinking about, so over the next 3 to 5 years, kind of art of the possible, if you could sit down with any company now and put together, you know, with a blank sheet of paper and put together the ideal customer contact strategy from the ground up, what would the ideal customer journey look like for you, kind of utilising the technology that's available now and things that are coming down the line in the future?
Yeah, and I think I'll work backwards on it as well, because I think we've put some of those building blocks in place through solutions like Teams that enable the contact centre to become a lot more live. And so where we're doing a video call here, where the end user, if they want to, they can interact with a person, you can see that. I think that will be a very good impact of that, and looking to enable. And as Teams is evolving, we've got a roadmap where the contact centre feature and functionality is really going to take off over this summer. But then I think really what we're looking to do is minimise the number of people that get through to that contact centre. And so, I appreciate I've mentioned it already, but the contact center, it should be that high skilled resource where the people who need that human touch, be it a sensible time where they're angry, sad, or generally quite worried, really trying to reassure them. If there are phases beyond that where people are getting into the contact center and through that contact center employee having that information about the customer, so there's tools like Dynamics that we will no doubt be able to integrate into Teams that give the call center that information about the customer, so that they know that already and they're not asking the customer those like same questions that they've already gone through. But then it doesn't even need to get to the contact center. If we can have those applications, so through through the chatbot, through the website, through applications, where we can service that information and really automate it as much as possible, where anything around their policy, impact, anything that's changed in the industry, that we can proactively provide to them in a way that's going to really minimize that journey. Because people that they want to be on Netflix, they want to be in the gardening, they don't want to be phoning up people like Microsoft trying to fix a problem.
So can you give us some examples of how that could work then? So if I'm a customer and I have a query, say about my water bill, traditionally I would have phoned the contact centre. What would be some of the options open to me then in the kind of the future world? What would I be doing, and how could I minimise my time spent sorting that query?
There's so many more avenues now, and so instead of 20 years ago where you'd look in the phone book, look up the phone number for that provider, I think a lot of people have Alexas or the Google device in their home at the moment, where I think if you could phone that, just ask the question and get that information presented back, that's probably going to be one of the more efficient routes, and that's technically very achievable now. But I think the more likely routes are that they're going to go through a website, through an application, or phoning through. And so you don't want any hold music straight away. You want to be able to know who that customer is that's phoning through at that moment, and so you've got that information ready, and you can say, right, basically, if it's through the phone line, hello Tracy, how are you doing today? How can I help? And so you're not
voice recognition, would it?
Exactly, voice recognition will be in there straight away, so that we would have that. Admittedly, it would be a chatbot, but it would be an audio chatbot in that scenario.
Yeah.
But we would already know that it's you that's phoning through. And so through the phone number that you're phoning through on doing that, or if you've contacted through the website or through an application, we've already done that registration. So we know that it's Tracy, we've done that in a secure way, and you're getting through there. It's straight into, right, how can we make a positive impact? How can we get you the information that you need as soon as possible?
Yeah. And what about things like kind of speech to text and sentiment analysis? Would that come in that early phase of me phoning in?
Yeah, and I think that's where we need to work with partners like yourselves to really make that real, because we've got that Microsoft, we've got a tool bag that's available there for that, so that things like facial recognition, speech detection, sentiment analysis, the cognitive services that are all available for that. We've got a number of bits there. I think it's working with partners like yourselves to make it real, and so when we can bring all those together in a way that can detect, it's you, this is one of our customers, we can validate that. But then, are they concerned at the moment? Is there something in there, like the anger can be one, anything for detecting a swear word, or just detecting bits like that. Like if you can be someone who's nervous giving out a webinar, for example, or something like that, where you can all those little points that you can look to do through cognitive services, and really making them enable an organisation to service their customers better, but also making the customer jump through a lot less hoops.
So my query then gets dealt with by an audio chatbot, and I don't have to speak to an actual person, unless I maybe have distress in my voice, or I'm frustrated or angry or something like that.
Exactly. So we want it to already complement. So I think if we take it back to that initial step where they can self-service, if there's bits where you can log in, and I think online banking is a very good example of that, where you can log in, get information about your account, or an application can do the same thing as the website. But then if you're not able to do that and you need to ask that question, you want that audio chatbot to be providing information, because I think speed and efficiency will be the most important part. And I think that sentiment analysis and the cognitive services there in place to set right. Speed might not be the most important thing to this person. They've got a genuine concern or they're worried, and we need to get them through to another human as soon as possible, really, where we can do a much better job of demonstrating that empathy and really providing that deep level of skills that can get them the complex answers that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just so we've worked on 2 examples recently, one for a national breakdown company, and the chatbot was dealing with really, really basic things like, can I update my the address on my policy? Can I change the registration of my car on my policy? I think in April it was handling about 6,000 conversations a day, and so that's 6,000 conversations taken out of the call center initially, so people then don't have to phone in with those really minor requests that can be self-served. And I guess that's feeding into what you're saying there around, you're then freeing up the call center staff who are, you know, highly trained to be able to deal with, you know, distressing situations and kind of getting rid of those bottlenecks of people initially.
Yeah, and I think a key thing as well as that, the emotive side, I think that there's some good work that we've been doing with, and I think that it's technology that can be used by most organisations, but I think a strong example is through some of the charity organisations, where if you can spot those people that are probably don't even know that they're struggling in some ways, like struggling to navigate a website, or if they're maybe not able to understand, even if they're looking to use a different language. And so having that versatility where you can adapt to someone's vulnerability or different requirements in a very quick and agile way, and maybe without them even knowing. Like, so you don't have to do a drop down where United Kingdom's right down the bottom and doing it straight away to do that, take that sort of pain out. I think it can make a really big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've got a couple of minutes left. I think, Sarah, we've got a couple of questions there, have we?
Yeah, I'll just tell you what we've got here. So we've got, how easy is it to install a virtual assistant? Are the benefits instantaneous once the solution has been switched on? I think that's one for you, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's ways that we can work for that. I think if you have things like a frequently asked questions item on your website, there are ways that they can be basically look to use that. So you've got the content, that's the valuable, rich information there that can be turned into a chatbot very, very quickly. And so as long as that information is relevant, then bits like that will make a big impact, and then you can expand on that usage. So as well as the frequently asked questions, then adding things like customer policy information to that. But what I would say is to make sure that it's targeted and it's done in a good way. We'd always recommend you work with like partners. So again, like a shameless plug for Mando on that, but using that expertise where they've gone through this and can do that lift and shift very quickly, and do it in a way that's going to have a positive impact on your customers.
So time frames around about 6 weeks, I think, is what we tend to give to get an MVP up and running.
Yeah, and I think it's important for that end-to-end journey that the digital transformation is in place, so that the chatbot fits in with the whole customer journey being as simple as possible. So yeah, great. So another one coming through. So do I have to have technical expertise to manage one of these solutions, or is it relatively straightforward?
I definitely say the technical expertise helps, but what we normally say is that there are ways that Microsoft can work with our partners and to understand you. If you're looking to roll this out, there's definitely avenues that we can look to do. So if you have a Microsoft account team, we're very happy to work with you to understand those requirements and look to put a solution in place very quickly.
Brilliant.
And I'm happy to navigate that within Microsoft as well. If you're not sure who your Microsoft team are, feel free to reach out to me.
If we don't have any other questions, I'll chuck one in there for you, Chris, as well. So obviously in the last few months, customers have been forced to adopt digital, and kind of reducing human contact, really. Obviously everybody has in lockdown, and that's affected some people. How can companies keep an essence of that human contact but by still using these technologies?
I definitely think that understanding of a customer works really well. And so if we have that information and data, like there's lots of examples where customers have to repeat the same sort of information many times. And so not doing that, I think, helps. And I certainly think video calls, like they're like a lot of the time before COVID, we joined conference calls and it wouldn't be video. And I think that video element helps like to recreate. There's times where we get tired if you're on a video calls all day, then I think you can get fatigued from that in many ways. But I think just like demonstrating that understanding of a customer, I think can make a really big impact, because depending on what area your business is in, a lot of the time when they're getting in touch, that they may have a concern. And so I think showing that empathy for that concern and getting them the information as soon as possible would help.
Absolutely, yeah, agreed. Great, well, we're on time now, so just to say thank you very much for joining us today. I hope it's been really interesting for everybody. We will follow up and send the recording around on demand so everybody can listen again or send to a colleague. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to Chris. Have a great day, everybody.